Bonjour. This KidTime StoryTime is brought to you by Adventure. Hello, kids of KidTime StoryTime. Oh, bonjour, Abuela Bear. Well, hello, Gilles the Giraffe. Do you know that Ponce de Leon, Americans call him Ponce de Leon. Oui. See, that is true. Ponce de Leon, or as you kids may call him, Ponce de Leon, well, he went to my country of Cuba. Oh yes, this man got around. He's a man of the world. A man after my own heart. Oh yes, he came from Europe, like you. He's from France? No, he's from Spain, right next door to France. Oh, okay. And he also discovered Florida, and he named Florida. Did you know that? So many things are named after Ponce de Leon for all the things that he did. So, are you ready to find out more? Absolutement. Let's begin this adventure on the Hassies. Okay, kid. All right. Thank you, Gilles and Abuela Bear. And we're going to read about Juan Ponce de Leon, or Ponce de Leon. It just depends on where you're from is how you say his name, I guess. But he was born Ponce de Leon. Back in the 1500s, people had heard many stories about magic waters. Some waters were said to heal sick people. Other waters were said to make old people young again. People searched for magic waters all over the world. Some people believed there were magic waters in Egypt or India. Other people thought magic waters could be found in France, England, or Belgium. In the 1500s, Europeans were exploring unknown lands. Remember, this is the era of Christopher Columbus and sailing the ocean blue. Many people thought that these lands that they're exploring might have these magic waters that they're talking about. Well, many stories say that Juan Ponce de Leon searched for magic waters in 1513. You know what these are called? That they said he was trying to find the Fountain of Youth. Now, these stories are probably only legends, but Ponce de Leon did find Florida, and he also made many other important discoveries. And he found Florida before the pilgrims landed up on Plymouth Rock, so this happened even before then. This is very early American history. A Spanish beginning. Ponce de Leon was born in San Tervas de Campos. The village was in the northwestern part of what is now simply called Spain. So you can just say he was from Spain. He was born right about 1474, or so. When he was a young man, Ponce de Leon joined the Spanish army. At this time, Spanish soldiers fought against the Muslims. There's a big religious war going on. And in 1492, you know that famous year, the Spanish defeated the Muslims. And then with the war being over, Ponce de Leon had to find, something else to do with all his free time now. So instead of warring, he heard about Christopher Columbus's trip across the sea. Oh, two great adventurers. The story gets even more interesting. I agree. So he heard that Christopher Columbus had sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, and he had returned to Spain with gold. Columbus also told stories about the land and the people he had seen. So Ponce wanted to see the new world that everyone was so crazy about. So Ponce de Leon joined Columbus's second voyage, and they sailed from Spain in 1493. So remember, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. In 1493, Columbus sailed the ocean blue with Ponce de Leon. The New World. Well, later that year, they settled on an island. Columbus had named it Hispaniola. It is home to the countries of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. You know, today is Hispaniola. Haiti and the Dominican Republic share a big island called Hispaniola. In 1502, Ponce de Leon married a Spanish woman named Leonor. They had 3 daughters and a son. And then Ponce de Leon spent some time being a soldier on Hispaniola, also known as Hispaniola, also known as the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Well, he and other Europeans fought the islanders. Oh boy. That happened a lot back then. The Europeans called these people Indians because of Columbus's mistake. Remember, he thought he had landed in India instead of the Caribbean? Well, Columbus called the native people Indians because he believed that they were in the West Indies. The Europeans, sadly, were often cruel to the Indians. They made slaves of some of the Indians, and they killed many more. Some Indian groups were completely wiped out. The Indians, which they weren't really Indians, but the natives, were angered by the way they were treated, and they sometimes attacked the European colonies. Now, as a soldier, Ponce de Leon helped conquer the Taino Indians of Higüey. Higüey was the eastern part of Hispaniola. The governor of Hispaniola made Ponce de Leon the governor of Higüey, and then he also gave Ponce de Leon a large piece of land. I guess that was his prize for his efforts. Ponce de Leon became a rich farmer because the land in the Caribbean is super rich and lush. You see the trees, you see the plants, and the climate is very good for growing. So it's easy, if you're a good farmer, to become rich. So he used his slaves to work the farm. He grew cassava. This is it, cassava. It's a root, grows under the ground, sort of a family of the potato and the sweet potato. Well, he also grew sweet potatoes, veggies, pigs, cattle, horses. Well, moving on to Puerto Rico and Bay Many, because Ponce de Leon, he didn't stick around any one place for too long. He heard the Indians, who weren't the Indians, the Caribbeans, I guess we can call them too, talk about the great riches on a nearby island. The Indians called this island Boriquen or Borinquen. Columbus had landed on the island in 1493 and called it San Juan Bautista, but it's not going to say that name for long. In 1508, Ponce de Leon traveled to San Juan Bautista, found gold and other riches, and, well, he and his soldiers fought the Indians there. The Indians, aka the future Puerto Ricans, aka the Caribbeans, the natives, you know. They conquered the island, they named it for Spain, and it became Puerto Rico. And he became the governor of Puerto Rico. He built the capital city, well, which is now near the present-day capital of San Juan. And he continued to add to his fortune with land, gold, and slaves. Because that was the way back then. That's how the Europeans conquered so many lands. Now, Diego Columbus. In 1511, Christopher Columbus's son, Diego, hey, I've never heard of him. He went to the king and queen of Spain and claimed that all of the land his father discovered. He claimed all of the land his dad had discovered. So then Diego Columbus became the ruler of Puerto Rico, and suddenly Ponce was no longer the governor. I guess this is about the time when Christopher Columbus must have died, and that's why the son came and claimed it, and suddenly he's out of a job. Well, moving on to something called Bay Many. Let's find out what that means. While in Puerto Rico, Ponce de Leon had heard stories about an island north of Cuba. Oh, now we're getting to my part of the world. Yes, Abuela Bear, we are. The Indians called this island Bay Many. Oh, look at that. Cuba was called Bay Many. How about that? I had no idea. The Indians said that this island had many riches. So in 1512, Ponce de Leon went to Spain, talked to his pal King Ferdinand, asked, hey, yo, do you mind if I go over to this new island that I'm hearing about so I can conquer it and get a bunch of stuff? And the kid said, sure, why not? Florida. Ponce de Leon left Puerto Rico in 1513 with 3 ships and 50 people, and he brought food from his farm for the trip. Ponce de Leon and his ship sailed north. They passed through what is now known as It's Better in the Bahamas, but they didn't have any of the cool, hotels there at the time. After a few weeks, the crew saw a long coast, and they anchored their ships and went on shore. Turns out they weren't in Cuba or Bay Many as they thought they were searching for. They were in what is now St. Augustine, Florida. Now, Ponce, he thought they'd found a big island because they didn't have Google Maps back then. So he didn't realize that he had reached not an island, but the North American continent. Ponce de Leon claimed the land for who? I know this one. Spain. Exactly. He claimed the land for Spain and called it La Florida. In Spanish, La Florida means the flowered one. I guess there were lots of beautiful flowers. Now, some historians believe Ponce de Leon chose this name because he reached the land during the Easter season, and Spanish people call this time Pascua Florida, Easter of the flowers. Ponce de Leon also saw many flowers on the land, and some people believe these flowers were another reason he named the land Florida. Well, good old Ponce decides to sail around Florida, take a little tour. He takes his ship south, goes down the coast, gets a strong current. Well, that current was the Gulf Stream, and it helps ships sail from the Americas to Europe. So Ponce and his crew, they sail around the southern tip of Florida. They go to the Florida Keys. Oh, I love the Florida Keys. Next, they sailed up the western coast of the Florida Peninsula. They were really getting quite the trip here. Now, they met the Calusa Indians along the western coast. The Calusa Indians did not want the explorers to take their land, and the Calusas fought several battles against Ponce de Leon and his men. So in May, Ponce decided, I'm going back to Puerto Rico. I found some new lands, I claimed them for Spain, I'm heading back. Ponce de Leon continues to explore the area, though, as he led the ships home, and they sail south until, boom, they don't go to Puerto Rico, now they reach Cuba. They sailed east along the northern coast of the island. Travel was really crazy before we had GPS systems and satellite view, so you know where you are. Very different back then. You just ran into land. Surprise! Well, they sailed around the northern coast of Cuba. Then they sailed through the Bahamas again. Then they finally reached Puerto Rico. This little trip, this little Caribbean jaunt, more than 200 days. Oh, look at this one. This is a pretty picture, isn't it? Ponce de Leon discovered islands west of Florida and named them the Tortugas. Today, they are known as the Dry Tortugas. So you see how many things are still named the way he named them? Florida, the Tortugas, the last voyage. Because, at some time, the tour has to end. In 1514, Ponce de Leon sailed to Spain. King Ferdinand, his bud, honors him for his discoveries. Hey, you're the best, Ponce! The king gives him permission to settle Florida. So he goes back to Puerto Rico, but he wasn't quite yet ready to return to Florida. First, he fought some more Indians. These are the Carib Indians. The Caribs did not want to be ruled by the Europeans. Well, finally, it's 1521, and Ponce is finally ready to make his return trip to Florida like a snowbird, if you will. This time, he was in charge of 2 ships, full of the original snowbirds, I suppose. The ships held 200 settlers, animals, and many other supplies to begin a colony. So, Ponce, our hero here, leads the ships to Florida and up the western coast. They land near the home of the Calusa Indians. Now, Ponce de Leon had already fought there on the first voyage, if you recall. He fought with Indians everywhere he went. Well, Ponce and the settlers begin to build their colony. The Calusa Indians tried to drive the settlers away, and during one of the battles, an arrow hits Ponce de Leon in the leg. Ah! Well, look here. The fight, the battle, the Indian arrow, and look at that. They're carrying him back to the ship. The settlers decided not to stay in Florida after that warm welcome, so they took a ship to Mexico. Ponce de Leon and some of the other settlers, since they had more than one ship, they decided to go to Cuba. Ponce de Leon's wound from the arrow did not heal. This was a time that was rather primitive. The adventurers, they did not have the modern day, as you call them, hospitals, and medical attention was very, as you say, different. It was very different. So this wound, this arrow, which somebody today could heal from just fine, well, he died from that. And he was in Cuba, and this was in 1521. The lasting impact, besides this pen mark that some mystery child has left on this book. Ponce de Leon was a part of many important events and discoveries in history. He helped the European colony on Hispaniola. He started a Spanish colony in Puerto Rico. He named Florida and explored much of the area around Florida. He also discovered the Gulf Stream. Partly because of Ponce de Leon's work, Europeans began to settle throughout the Americas. And because of that, because they settled the Americas, is why Cuba speaks Spanish, why Puerto Rico has Spanish as its official language, and why half of Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic half, speaks Spanish as well as a few islands along here. And of course, Florida is full of Spanish-speaking people because people come back and forth because they're so close. So, we have learned a great deal here. Here's just a couple of more fast facts. I thought this one was super interesting. Ponce de Leon's crew included a European woman and an African man. That was unusual back in the day to have anything but fellow white dudes on the ship. So that was kind of interesting. And let's see here. Well, the Calusa Indians that fought with Ponce de Leon and ultimately wounded him mortally, they no longer exist. They also died in battle later on in the future, with other Indian tribes actually competing for the land. Florida has had its share of interesting history. That's why I like to go there every year. There is no interesting history on South Beach. That is what you think. I am determined to keep looking, especially at night in the South Deco district, where everything is cool and the people are beautiful. You never know what stories you will create yourself. Oh, you crazy giraffe. You remind me of my young days. Well, kid, I hope you enjoy this history of adventurer Ponce de Leon and that you learn a little bit of history. Oh, well, I have to go make some stories myself. You know what I mean, Abuela Bear? Oh, Gilles. Well, kid, have a wonderful day and see you next time on Kid Time Story Time. Bye-bye.